Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Unreal Season 1 Episode 9. It's called Princess. So spoilers for the episode, and this is a Patreon sponsored review, so thanks to Born Now for picking this show. So it's the penultimate episode of the season, and by the end of the episode, we have Rachel with a genuine decision to make. And lots of conniving this episode by Quinn. I actually kind of laughed because the start of the episode kind of intercut between Quinn having sex with Chet, despite everything that he did last episode. She was just kind of playing along, and as we see throughout the episode, she's playing along because she's starting to formulate plans, and she's sort of keeping him at bay for now. You know, if he doesn't know that she's plotting, then she's got an advantage. But she's having sex with Chet as Rachel has went to Jeremy, and they've started having sex. Like, he comes into the shower with her at his place, and it intercuts between them, and it felt like a really interesting pair of scenes to intercut, because it felt like two examples of poor sex life choices happening at the same time, given that Rachel had just been with Adam like an hour ago, 2 hours ago, and is sort of pretending that everything's hunky-dory. And that's kind of a big thing for her this episode, is pretending that her and Jeremy are just a thing now, and that she might even leave the industry. She might go with him and live elsewhere. But clearly, it never really feels like that's where we're actually going, mainly just because we know that there's more seasons. I mean, that was the big thing as I was watching this, is that some of the things they were teasing, and the big question that's there at the end of the episode that they were teasing, I'm like, I kind of know the answer to this, just because I know there's a season 2. And, well, at the very least, I'm assuming that season 2 is still going to be these characters making a show. Maybe it's not everlasting, maybe they do move on, because something that's proposed in this episode is that Quinn is going to start her own production company, and maybe her and Rachel will be making a new show under that new company next season, if that's the way it goes. I don't know if it is, but either way, I expect them to be making something, right? I expect the core premise of the show to still be there. So the potential that Rachel will agree to run away with Adam at the end and, you know, go gallivanting around the world and not give a care about what's going on, I kind of feel like I know the answer to that. But it doesn't ruin the journey so much, though, because I think the big thing here is that last episode, Rachel clearly wanted to be like Quinn, and that she wanted to run a show just like Quinn. That's what she bargained for. That's what she was gunning for. And in this episode, she obviously kind of has that in the bag because of the spin-off, which has changed its name to Royal Renovations. They've changed it to not Royal Love, Royal Renovations, because they've refocused it to be about renovating the vineyard. So they've come up with some branding for it. But anyway, so what was I saying? Rachel, throughout this episode, kind of starts to kind of go against that idea that she wants to be like Quinn. And the best scene of the episode by far is the scene where Quinn kind of basically just straight up blackmails her. And the performance here from Quinn was particularly good. Constance Zimmer, her delivery of some of those lines was very good, because Quinn, in the middle of the episode, offers Rachel this opportunity to go with her to a new company, right? For her company. She's going to start a new company. She's got all of her own ideas, and she wants Rachel to be there, not as her lackey, not as an employee, but as a partner. And Rachel says, thank you very much, but I was actually just thinking of quitting and leaving. And Quinn does not like this very much, and Quinn kind of mocks the idea that Rachel's going to go and be a happy wife or a happy girlfriend and live a normal life. And Rachel gets defensive and says that she doesn't want to be like Quinn. To which Quinn immediately responds, yeah, you do. And it feels like that question is being challenged, right? And we already had the idea that she might want to be like Quinn, and now she's saying she doesn't. But I feel like the entire question at the end of this season is the challenge of Rachel deciding what she actually wants. Because the question is raised. I mean, Quinn even says to her at one point, like, you're supposed to be the one handling all these women that are on the show, but you don't seem to understand or know what you actually want for yourself. And that's been a constant thing all season. She has been unsure who she wants to be with. She thought it was Jeremy for a while, then she sort of got hesitant, but now Jeremy actually wants her. And the funny thing about the Jeremy relationship is that this episode kind of painted him as the sort of the dull safe choice, where he's kind of like just drinking with these like co-workers and they're having fun, and it kind of feels like, oh, this is a very normal life that she could slot into, and you can kind of sort of see what the existence would be going forward. Now, admittedly, that doesn't necessarily mean it's okay for Quinn to refer to him as below the line and not being worthy of being with Rachel, but it does sort of present this idea that she has more ambitions than that, or at least Quinn thinks she has more ambitions than that, and perhaps she does. Perhaps there is these ideas of grandeur, of being more important, of being something, and I think she does. I think ultimately, I think Quinn is right. I mean, maybe not the exact phrasing of "you want to be me," but certainly the idea that'll ultimately where she lands, because that makes the most sense for the show going forward. Is the sort of the progression of that of the her own ambition for her own career goals, as opposed to being about Adam, who, you know, I don't think that's just where we're going to go, which is fine. Now, admittedly, what does that mean for the Jeremy stuff, right? Because the whole blackmail thing with Quinn is that she says, "Hey, you're going to come work in my company, or I'm going to show Jeremy this video," because Quinn has found footage of proof of her and what's his name, Adam, having sex, and Adam doesn't really care, but he doesn't want to throw Rachel under the bus, and she's like, "Hey, you're going to like propose and marry someone for this spin-off, like you're going to do that for me, Adam, or I'm leaking this." And Quinn, it's a huge power play. You know, like I say, it was very enjoyable to watch her kind of at her worst in some ways. Now, that's not to say that Quinn is just completely likable this episode, because as much as it's kind of fun to watch her be this conniving and powerful here, there is another side to Quinn in this episode that does feel a little bit less savory, and that's the Madison stuff, which we'll get to. But yeah, so it presents Rachel with this dilemma, and I don't know like how exactly we're going to sort of settle what's going on with Jeremy right now. I mean, I guess the obvious thing would be that Jeremy just finds out, and we go into season 2 with Jeremy and Rachel once again being in a really weird, bad place that doesn't quite sync up. Maybe even Rachel will choose to tell him, like actually just be honest about it, because it's just this, because like every single time he says in this episode, "Oh, I'm glad you're here at my place," or I'm glad we're together now. Every single time it feels like Rachel's faking it. It feels like she's kind of. It feels a great like sort of thing between the two characters where at the start of the episode when they're in the shower, Jeremy says "I love you" to Rachel, and she says "me too." She doesn't say "I love you" or "I love you too." She just says "me too." And then later on, when Chet says it to Quinn, Quinn just goes "you too." Doesn't say "I love you too," just says "you too." And I thought that was a very interesting, deliberate decision to have both of them say to their partners in this episode, to kind of like dodge actually saying "I love you," like kind of say it back, but without actually saying it back. I thought that was interesting, especially since this whole show is about like faking romance and faking. It's all about an illusion, and this episode really hammers that home, because all of the stuff that Adam's doing with the girls, renovating the vineyard in this episode, all of it's fake. We see him on a fake horse being pulled by a car to simulate the movement so that you can get a nice shot of him riding on the horse, because it's a stunt double most of the time. They've put up a fake wall so that they can hammer through a wall with a sledgehammer for the shot of, "Hey, we're uncovering a secret room in here." Isn't that exciting? Lots of fun stuff. So yeah, the hot air balloon was also it was a work. It was all a work, and I think to use wrestler in terms, I feel like it's actually quite apt now that I'm thinking about it, to basically say that this show is about a bunch of people who are doing a work, but the characters running the work also work themselves into a shoot. And I realized that for a lot of you that made no sense, but for people who know wrestling lingo, that was an accurate statement. That was an accurate statement. That's what Rachel's done. Rachel has flirted with Adam. She has tried to play this game with him to control him, to manipulate him in the way that she's supposed to, but has ultimately ended up maybe feeling something. She has worked herself into a real thing, into a shoot. But yeah, anyway. I want to talk about the Quinn side a bit more, though, with Madison. Because this was an interesting scene. It was a funny scene from like a dialogue and delivery perspective, because the way Quinn kind of like just there's one moment where Quinn's trying to convince Madison that Chet took advantage of her, and she wants to get lawyers and help Madison sue Chet, and this is clearly part of Quinn's plan to take Chet down. But Madison is like, I didn't say no. Like she's kind of, it kind of feels like the weird thing about this scene is that this could have easily played in a way where Quinn absolutely is right about what she's saying, and Madison's hesitant because she's scared of Chet and she feels like she's been used and she's maybe embarrassed. But the way it actually plays out is that Quinn is imprinting something onto her, and Madison clearly feels uncomfortable because she's been told that this was this bad thing, when, well, obviously, in an objective sense, Chet absolutely took advantage of his position of power, don't get me wrong, but Madison's like, no, it wasn't really like that. You know, she seems pretty content with the decision she made, and, you know, like, all these things that are being said are Quinn putting words into her mouth, and it's not really what she believes or wants. So I think that does feel quite sinister. I mean, if anything, it maybe suggests more about how Quinn feels about her own start with Chet. She even says in the scene, you know, Chet did this to me a long time ago when I was young. And clearly, with a lot of time to reflect, or maybe she's, you know, it's sort of warped in her brain with the way she's felt about Chet as time has went on. But I would certainly suggest that she looks back on her decision to sort of give Chet what he wanted back then, and feel like, oh, he took advantage of me because of his position of power. That was wrong. And it is wrong, obviously, but it feels like she's maybe imprinting her own feelings onto Madison. Now, whether or not she actually feels any of those things, or it is just purely cold strategy because she wants to take him down, and this is something she can mold and manipulate into being the smoking gun. Obviously, the therapist lady wants her own show, so she goes to Chet when she hears about this from Madison and warns Chet that this is happening. So I don't know what sort of fight we're going to get out of those two next episode, but Quinn does go to the producer in LA and pitches, hey, I've got my own ideas, Chet's the middleman, let's talk. You need a new hit show, I've got tons of ideas. So she's trying to go above and beyond, she's trying to start her own thing, and that ties into the whole job offer with Rachel. So I'm not sure if it's actually going to happen necessarily, because I could totally see a world in which they still want the dynamic of Chet being involved with whatever's going on next season, but it's plausible enough that that could be the change for season 2, is that Quinn's in charge of the company and Rachel might be, say, the showrunner, right? Maybe that's how they'll shift positions next season, and maybe some of the same faces will get hired because, well, I don't know, because they like them or something, I don't know, whatever. But I mean, it's interesting to maybe see where that goes and see if we actually do make this shift, or if the show kind of snaps back into more of a status quo by kind of undoing some of these potential changes. You know, if Chet finds out and blocks it and goes out of his way to kind of sabotage the whole thing, we could end up with a more sort of status quo of what we already had. Just the characters' attitudes towards each other will have changed immensely, of course, because of the anger they'll probably all feel about it, but the actual status quo of where they all are in positions might end up being the same again. But I'm definitely curious to see where we go with that. So as far as the other stuff goes, like the actual game, I mean, I guess it's just worth mentioning the 3 girls that are left in the game, because they all have moments, they all have dates with Adam, and they have some interesting bits. A lot of it is used, of course, for Rachel to sort of like hear Adam speak lovingly to, you know, what's her name, Anna, and get kind of jealous and sort of be like feel mixed because she kind of wants to hear that herself, and you know, and she does at the end of the episode. Adam basically says, "Let's run away," and does all that stuff. But I think these individual scenes, I mean, Grace sticks out this episode as getting kind of pissed at everything, at Adam picking Anna for the overnight towards the end. You know, Anna seems to genuinely be falling for him, and even says as much to Rachel, and is kind of wanting to do some of this stuff, is actually finding the life that Adam's saying that he can offer appealing, particularly the traveling, and the idea that she can do a lot for charity as part of like his royal bloodline. So she's all in that. Grace is pissed because Chet tries to just quote unquote sex her up, and Grace is like, Adam knows I'm hot. Like, I've got other qualities. It's time to show some of those. So she's getting frustrated, and she gets pissed that she's not picked at the end for the thing. Perhaps the most interesting of the three is Faith in this episode, because Faith was never really in the running. I mean, ever since she had that episode that focused on her, which was very, very good, in revealing her sexuality and all that, she's always been kind of this interesting, like, fun character to have around, and that her chemistry with Adam in a non-romantic way has been entertaining to watch. And we see that again here where they've got the sledgehammer and stuff. But she goes up to Adam afterwards and says, "Hey, I kind of want to win." And Adam's like, "Wait, what?" And she basically pitches him that, look, we know it's fake, right? You're not going to actually want to marry anyone here. So might as well be me. It might as well be me, because I actually would enjoy renovating this place with you for a year. That would be fun. Plus, my girlfriend could come here, and we could be away from our super homophobic town, and we could go live a new life, and you obviously you could go and flirt with any woman you wanted. I wouldn't care. So she sort of pitches a kind of a sort of mutual agreement that's fairly convincing, and she even has a funny line where she says, "Come on, you're not going to settle down and marry someone. You're too much of a player. I could draw a vagina on a piece of paper, and you'd probably try and hit on it." That was a funny line, and it was actually kind of nice to see Faith be this kind of like confident. It was like a real confident moment from her that felt different to how she's been, and it doesn't feel as manipulative as a lot of the other characters. Because I think one of the things about all the other characters is they're scheming on this show, and Rachel's trying to, like, you know, last episode pitching Adam on this new show, this spin-off, and trying to get him to agree to it. She had like an ulterior motive, right? And she kind of tried to conceal that ulterior motive. And there's a lot of that going on with all the other characters, particularly behind the camera. And even when they do eventually admit why they want to do something, it does feel very much like we're making deals that we're not happy with because we're going to be angry at each other. Faith's offer here feels like, hey, this is mutually beneficial. Here's how it works for you. Here's how it would work for me. Think about it. I don't know. It felt like a more wholesome offer that didn't have any, like, there was no trap. There was no, like, underlying thing that Faith was trying to get under the radar and trick Adam into. It was very genuine. Here's how it would work. This is why it's a good idea and why the other girls aren't a good idea. So come on, why not just do it? Of course, he doesn't know. He kicks out Faith at the end of the episode, and she has a genuine tearful reaction. But honestly, other than the scene with Quinn doing the blackmail, which I really liked, I think my second favorite scene of this episode is probably this moment, particularly just for the little part afterwards where Faith hugs Adam, and Adam genuinely, I would say and believe, says to her, "Hey, you're pretty great, and, like, I don't want you to," like, because one of the things he says when he says to Rachel that Faith made this offer to him is that he's worried that she's kind of chickening out of, like, you know, going back home and trying to, like, reveal who she is and, like, move that part of her life forward. The idea that of actually facing that now is starting to get scary. So he says here at the end when he's saying goodbye on camera, he's like, "Hey, stay the course. You're kind of amazing. You can do this. I believe it." Like, it felt like a really genuine goodbye, and she says she understands. And it did feel kind of genuine. None of it felt like there was a malicious element to it. So, and even in some level, even if Adam does want to pick one of the other two girls, we know he really wants Rachel right now, so it's not so much even about, like, wanting one of them instead. you can argue that his decision here in part was because he genuinely thought it was the right thing to do for Faith. That he doesn't really want to do what she suggested, and that this is the better choice for her. So, because it'll mean more if she's able to kind of like get away from her town if that's what she wants to do, or try and be who she is there with confidence. But it was a nice moment, and I like that, and it's just, I feel like the interactions with Faith have been a really big thing for Adam as a character, because it's the one big thing that makes him have a bit more depth. Like, he's not just a dick who wants to sleep around, because of his interactions with Faith, because of him looking out for her and sticking up for her in those few moments where it was necessary. It felt like, oh, there's no, sleazy motivation here. There's nothing like that. It's just a chance for him to be genuine. And it's a really important thing, I think, with a show where you've got all these characters who are conniving. And the therapist lady even says, like, everyone here is out for themselves. And the sooner you realize that, the better you'll survive. Like, no one's doing something to help you just to help you. And I think it's important with a show full of characters like that they have moments or things that they do that feel genuine, to make us like them, even though they're being very, very flawed a lot of the time and doing the wrong things. And that Faith episode really went a long way for Adam, and even Rachel to a point, because even Rachel felt like she was really helping her in that episode, by having it not be a thing that was on camera, by having it be a separate thing that was just so yeah, I think this was a great little payoff to that. I think Faith's been a surprisingly strong character throughout the season. I'm assuming this is maybe the last time we'll see her, maybe barring a little goodbye cameo next episode. So, no, it's interesting stuff. But yeah, that's basically my feelings on the penultimate episode of the show. What will Rachel say? I mean, if I was to guess, I would say Rachel will probably say one thing at the start of the episode, but by the end of the finale, will be set up for whatever season 2 is going to be. So I think she might actually say yes to Adam to start with, but obviously it's not going to go through, right? Something's going to stop it, or she'll change her mind, or something. But I could see her saying yes initially, only for it to fall apart. Anyway, that's my thoughts on UnReal episode 9. So next month we do have the finale of season 1. Be cool to see how this first season wraps up. Let me know what you thought of this show in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Helps out a bunch if you do. And of course, you can go over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help keep all the reviews coming, both here on MailFuzz TV, but also over on MailFuzz Movies. And there's normal price tiers. You don't have to get the big one, which makes me review a show you pick. You can just sign up for $5 and help keep everything coming. But thank you very much for joining me. I do appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?